In the age of satellites and global positioning, our world feels completely mapped. Every continent, every island accounted for. But what if I told you that for over a century, maps showed an island that simply wasn't there? This is the story of Sandy Island, a ghost on the charts, a cartographic mystery that endured into the 21st century. Located in the Coral Sea between Australia and New Caledonia, it was recorded as a sizable landmass. It appeared on countless maps, from naval charts to world atlases, accepted as fact by generations of sailors and scholars. The island was noted as being approximately 24 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide, a significant piece of land. But its existence was built on a foundation as shifting as the sand it was named for. Our story begins not with discovery, but with a report, a single entry in a ship's log that would echo through history. It was a mistake that would be copied, confirmed, and finally confronted by modern technology. So how did an entire island appear on our maps, only to vanish into thin air? The year is 1774. The legendary explorer Captain James Cook is navigating the treacherous waters of the South Pacific. Aboard his ship, HMS Resolution, he meticulously charts the unknown, pushing the boundaries of the known world. While sailing through the Coral Sea, he noted in his chart, Sandy Eye, marking a potential hazard for future voyages. Cook was a master cartographer. His charts were the gold standard, trusted implicitly by those who followed. He didn't land on the island or even confirm its existence up close. It was likely a notation of breakers or a reef. But in the world of 18th century mapmaking, even a suggestion from a man like Cook was treated as gospel. His simple note, meant as a caution, became the birth certificate for a phantom island. The location was remote, the waters poorly explored. There was no one to immediately contradict the master explorer. And so, Sandy Island was born not of rock and soil, but of ink and authority. This single data point would be duplicated for over 100 years, a ghost in the cartographic machine. For a century, Sandy Island remained a passive mark on a map. Then, in 1876, came a new report. The whaling ship Velocity was navigating the same treacherous waters of the Coral Sea. Its captain reported not only Sandy Island, but also a series of large sand reefs nearby. This wasn't just a passing note. It was a seeming confirmation from another vessel on the scene. The report lent new credibility to Cook's original chart. 2 separate sightings, 100 years apart. This new information was quickly incorporated into official nautical charts, solidifying the island's existence. But what did the crew of the Velocity actually see? The truth is likely far more mundane. One popular theory suggests they witnessed a massive pumice raft, a floating island of volcanic rock. These rafts can drift for thousands of miles after an underwater eruption, easily mistaken for a permanent feature. Regardless of the cause, the Velocity's report cemented Sandy Island's place on the map for another century. With 2 confirmations, Sandy Island graduated from a curious note to an accepted geographical fact. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, mapmakers around the world dutifully copied it. It appeared in British Admiralty charts, German atlases, and American geographical publications. This is a common phenomenon in cartography. Once an error is introduced, it can be incredibly difficult to remove. Each new map that included the island reinforced the belief in its existence, creating a feedback loop of misinformation. For sailors, a phantom island on a chart was better than an uncharted reef. It was a warning to be cautious. The island even made its way into prominent publications like the Times Atlas of the World. For decades, no one had a reason to question it. The data was there, printed in black and white. The island existed because the maps said it existed, a perfect example of circular reasoning. But as technology advanced, the world began to shrink, and the spaces for phantom islands started to disappear. The tide began to turn in the 1970s. The French Hydrographic Service conducted a detailed survey of the area. They scanned the ocean floor at the exact coordinates where Sandy Island was supposed to be. Their findings were conclusive. There was nothing there, just deep, open water. In 1979, based on this overwhelming evidence, France officially removed Sandy Island from its nautical charts. However, the rest of the world was slow to catch up. The island persisted on many other international maps. The mystery deepened in the 1980s with the rise of amateur radio enthusiasts, or hams. These hobbyists sometimes mount expeditions to remote locations to make contact with other operators. Several groups, noting Sandy Island on their maps, set sail for its coordinates, hoping to broadcast from a new entity. They, too, found nothing. Their logs and reports added to the growing body of evidence against the island's existence. The ghost island was beginning to fade, but it hadn't vanished completely. Its biggest disappearing act was yet to come. As the world entered the digital age, one would expect such cartographic ghosts to be exorcised for good. Many digital maps are built upon older databases, some of which contain the historical era of Sandy Island. One such database was the World Vector Shoreline Database, a foundational dataset used by many mapping platforms. And there it was, the Phantom Island, reborn as a black polygon on a digital sea. For years, users of Google Earth and other online maps could see this strange, dark smudge in the Coral Sea. It didn't look like a normal island. It was an unnatural shape, a void in the satellite imagery. This digital ghost sparked new curiosity. What was this blacked-out area? A secret base? A mapping glitch? The error had been passed down from quill and ink to silicon and pixel, a testament to its persistence. The stage was set for a final confrontation between the myth and modern scientific inquiry. A team of scientists, intrigued by the anomaly, decided to go and see for themselves once and for all. In November 2012, the Australian research vessel, the Southern Surveyor, was on a 25-day expedition. Led by a team of scientists from the University of Sydney, their primary mission was to study tectonics. But they had a secondary, more unusual objective: to solve the mystery of Sandy Island. The official scientific charts for their voyage showed open water, but other maps and databases showed an island. This discrepancy piqued their scientific curiosity. They decided to divert their course to investigate. As they approached the location, anticipation built among the crew and the scientific team. They were sailing into a myth, a place that existed on paper and pixels for over 2 centuries. Equipped with state-of-the-art multi-beam sonar, they were prepared to map whatever they found in high detail. The ship's navigation system showed them sailing directly over the supposed landmass. But as they looked out from the bridge, all they could see was the endless blue of the Coral Sea. The moment of truth had arrived. The Southern Surveyor was at ground zero of the cartographic mystery. The ship's multi-beam echo sounder, which maps the seafloor, was running continuously. The data streamed in, painting a picture of the world beneath the waves. It was a picture of absence. Instead of a landmass, the instruments recorded a continuous depth of over 1,400 meters or nearly a mile deep. The scientists watched as the ship sailed right across the Phantom Island, confirming it was nothing but deep ocean. Dr. Seaton famously tweeted, "We're undiscovering an island." The mystery was solved. There was no secret base, no volcanic peak, not even a shallow reef. There was simply nothing. The black polygon on Google Earth was a trap street of sorts, but for a non-existent feature. The scientific process, with its demand for empirical evidence, had finally erased the ghost. The undiscovery made headlines around the world, a quirky story about how maps can be wrong. Following the definitive proof from the Southern Surveyor, the world's cartographic agencies began to act. Google was among the first to update its maps, removing the black polygon that had puzzled so many. The National Geographic Society, a bastion of cartographic authority, officially struck the island from its maps. Hydrographic offices around the globe issued notices to mariners, correcting the centuries-old error. The ghost that haunted the Coral Sea was finally laid to rest, erased from the collective human record. The story became a classic cautionary tale for geographers, data scientists, and anyone who trusts data implicitly. It highlights the importance of questioning sources, even long-established ones, and verifying data firsthand. In an age of information overload, Sandy Island reminds us that data can be flawed, copied, and perpetuated. The final correction was a quiet victory for the scientific method and the pursuit of empirical truth. But it leaves us with a fascinating question. What other ghosts might still be lurking in our maps? The story of Sandy Island is more than just a quirky footnote in the history of cartography. It's a powerful reminder that maps are not perfect representations of reality. They are human documents. They carry our knowledge, but also our errors, our assumptions, and sometimes our fantasies. From a cautious note by Captain Cook to a misidentified pumice raft, a simple error was born. Through repetition and authority, this error became a fact, surviving for over 230 years. It took the combination of scientific curiosity and modern technology to finally set the record straight. Sandy Island may be gone from our maps, but its story remains as a valuable lesson. It teaches us to be critical thinkers, to question what we're told, and to appreciate the process of discovery. Even in an age where everything seems known, there are still mysteries to solve and errors to correct. The world is always a little more mysterious than our maps would have us believe. The persistence of Sandy Island isn't just a technical error, it's also a story about human psychology. We are wired to trust authority. For centuries, the ultimate authority in geography was the printed map. If an esteemed institution like the British Admiralty or National Geographic said an island was there, who would argue? This is known as confirmation bias. Once a belief is established, we tend to accept information that confirms it. The report from the whaling ship Velocity perfectly fit this bias, reinforcing the original error from Cook's chart. There's also a romantic appeal to the idea of undiscovered lands, a holdover from the age of exploration. Phantom islands feed our desire for a world that still holds secrets and wonders yet to be found. The digital black spot on Google Earth added a modern twist, fueling conspiracy theories and online speculation. In a way, people wanted Sandy Island to be real, either as a simple landmass or a complex secret. Its undiscovery was a dose of reality, a reminder that the world is as it is, not always as we wish it to be. Sandy Island is not alone. History is littered with phantom islands, cartographic ghosts that once dotted our maps. One of the most famous was the island of High Brazil, which appeared on maps off the coast of Ireland for centuries. Legend said it was cloaked in mist, appearing only one day every 7 years, a classic mythological trope. Then there was the Aurora's Islands, reported in the South Atlantic and sought by explorers for nearly a century. These were likely misidentified icebergs or the shag rocks, but they persisted on charts until the 1850s. Crocker Land in the Arctic was a supposed landmass discovered by Robert Peary in 1906. An expedition was launched in 1913 to explore it, only to find it was a mirage, a common Arctic optical illusion. Each of these stories shares a common thread, a combination of human error, natural phenomena, and wishful thinking. Sandy Island is unique because it survived so long, enduring well into the age of digital mapping and satellites. It stands as the last of the great phantom islands, a final ghost to be exorcised by modern science. So what is the most likely scientific explanation for the original sightings of Sandy Island? The leading theory points to a fascinating and surprisingly common geological event: the pumice raft. When certain underwater volcanoes erupt, they release gas-filled, low-density pumice rock that floats to the surface. These stones can coalesce into enormous floating rafts that can cover hundreds of square kilometers. From a distance, especially from the deck of an 18th or 19th century ship, this could easily be mistaken for an island. The region near Tonga is a hotbed of submarine volcanic activity, a likely source for such a raft. Ocean currents could have carried this massive raft right through the area where Sandy Island was charted. This would explain both Cook's sighting of breakers and the Velocity's more detailed report of sandy reefs. Over time, the pumice stones become waterlogged or disperse, and the island simply vanishes. It's a perfect natural phenomenon to create a temporary, convincing, and ultimately non-existent island. Beyond simple errors, sometimes fictitious places are added to maps on purpose. These are called trap streets. Mapmakers would insert a fake street, or in some cases a small town, as a way to protect their copyright. If a competitor's map included their unique, fictional entry, it was proof of plagiarism. One famous example is Agloe, New York, a fictional town created for a general drafting company map. When another map company copied it, they were caught. But then, a general store was built there and named the Agloe General Store. The fiction, in a strange way, became reality. The map literally put the place on the map. While Sandy Island wasn't a deliberate trap, its journey shows how errors, once embedded, function similarly. They become a kind of signature, a data point that gets copied from one source to another without verification. The black polygon on Google Earth was the modern equivalent of this, a digital ghost born from an analog error. It illustrates how our digital world is built upon layers of older information, warts and all. The story of Sandy Island is also the story of the tools we use to see our world. In Captain Cook's time, the primary tools were the sextant, the chronometer, and the keen eye of the navigator. Observations were painstakingly recorded by hand in logbooks, and charts were drawn with ink on parchment. By the 19th century, printing presses allowed for the mass production of charts, but also the mass duplication of errors. The 20th century brought aerial photography and sonar, allowing us to see below the waves and from above the clouds. This is when the first real doubts about Sandy Island began to surface, as systematic surveys found nothing. Then came the satellite age. GPS and global imaging promised a perfect, error-free map of the world. But as we saw, these new systems were often built on old data, carrying the ghosts of the past with them. Finally, the multi-beam sonar of the Southern Surveyor provided the definitive, undeniable evidence. Each tool brought us closer to the truth, culminating in the undiscovery of an island that never was. Let's travel back to that specific day in 1774. Imagine the scene on the deck of HMS Resolution. Captain Cook is on the quarterdeck, the most experienced navigator of his generation, scanning the horizon. The Coral Sea is notorious for its reefs and shoals, a minefield for the wooden ships of the era. Perhaps he sees a line of breakers in the distance, white water indicating dangerously shallow ground. Or maybe it was a low-lying fog bank, which can often mimic the appearance of a coastline. He doesn't divert to investigate. His mission is vast, and time is precious. He simply makes a note. He writes Sandy Eye, a simple cautionary label. It could mean sandy islet or sandy shoal. This ambiguous note, interpreted by later cartographers as a definite island, was the seed of the myth. It wasn't a blunder, but a prudent piece of seamanship misinterpreted by those who followed. In that single moment, a ghost was born from a combination of caution, ambiguity, and the vastness of the sea. When the news broke that Sandy Island had been undiscovered, the reaction was a mix of amusement and fascination. News outlets around the globe picked up the story, often with playful headlines about a vanishing island. For the scientific community, it was a vindication of the scientific method and the importance of ground-truthing data. Dr. Maria Seaton and her team were praised for their curiosity and for taking the time to investigate the anomaly. Librarians and archivists found it a fascinating case study in the transmission of information and misinformation. The public was captivated by the idea that in our hyper-connected world, such a fundamental error could persist for so long. It sparked conversations about digital literacy and the need to critically evaluate sources, even from trusted platforms. Some expressed a sense of loss, a romantic sadness that one of the world's little mysteries had been solved. The story was quickly immortalized online, with its own Wikipedia page detailing its long history and eventual debunking. Ultimately, the tale of Sandy Island became a shared cultural moment, a modern parable about knowledge, error, and discovery. So let's recap the incredible life cycle of this phantom island, a journey spanning nearly 240 years. 1774, Captain James Cook makes a note of sandy ideas on his chart of the Coral Sea. 1876, the whaling ship Velocity reports the island and nearby reefs, seemingly confirming its existence. Late 19th to 20th century, the island is copied onto countless maps and atlases around the world. 1979, the French Hydrographic Service surveys the area, finds nothing, and removes it from their charts. Circa 2000, the island is digitized from old data and appears as a black polygon on Google Earth. November 2012, the Australian research vessel, Southern Surveyor, sails to the exact coordinates. The crew finds only deep ocean, conclusively proving the island does not exist. Late 2012, news of the undiscovery spreads, and map makers begin removing the island from their databases. From a simple note to a digital ghost, and finally to nothing. A complete cartographic journey. With our advanced technology, could a mistake like Sandy Island happen again today? It's less likely for a physical feature of that size, thanks to constant satellite surveillance. However, the core of the problem wasn't the lack of technology, but the uncritical acceptance of data. In the age of big data and AI, we are more reliant than ever on information we don't personally verify. A flawed dataset or a biased algorithm could create modern phantom islands in our data landscapes. These might not be geographical, but could be flawed economic predictions, social statistics, or medical diagnoses. The process is the same. An initial error is fed into a system and then replicated automatically. Crowdsourcing and open data projects where users can contribute help to find and fix these errors faster. The lesson of Sandy Island is therefore more relevant than ever. Trust, but verify. Question the data, understand its origins, and never be afraid to go and see for yourself. In the end, Sandy Island was a ghost story for the age of information. A tale of a non-existent place that journeyed from the age of sail to the era of the satellite. It revealed the fallibility of our records and the persistence of error through generations. It showed us that our maps are not just tools, but stories we tell ourselves about the world. And sometimes those stories can be wrong, no matter how beautifully they are drawn or how confidently they are presented. The ocean holds many secrets, but a large island in the Coral Sea is no longer one of them. Thanks to a handful of curious scientists, the map is now a little more accurate. The world is a little less mysterious, but our understanding of it is a little more complete. So the next time you look at a map, remember Sandy Island. Remember to be curious. Because the greatest discoveries are sometimes not finding what you were looking for, but finding out it was never there at all.